goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising and marketing. Welcome back to another episode of our Breaking and Entering Brand Side segment, where we interview those who work for one specific brand. We like agency professionals, don't get me wrong, but we've got to explore all routes for you so you know where you want to work. And it can't just be advertising agencies. So that's why we have on an incredible guest, Valentina Lara. Valentina is a strategic storyteller, digital marketer, and problem solver with 8+ years of industry experience. And she's currently leading marketing at Ampersand Studios, which is a thoughtfully designed, flexible workspace and production facility dedicated to cultivating creativity and talent. This sounds to me like there should be a breaking and entering event at Ampersand Studios in either Nashville or Miami or both. So if that's something that piques your interest, reach out to me, reach out to Valentina, and hold us accountable. She was previously at Twitter before Ampersand as a partner engagement manager, and she led partner education efforts through consultation and strategic one-on-one services. And before that, she was at Edelman. You're going to learn about engaging with communities this episode, transferring over to the brand side, and some ups and downs along the way, and what to do if you are ever laid off. So it's a great episode. I'm excited for you to listen. Reach out to Valentina. And if you have any struggles reaching out to her or any of our past guests, connect with me on LinkedIn. All I ask is you leave a nice review on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars, a nice little feedback on there. If you do that, I'll do my best to connect you. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Brand Side podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Alrighty, Valentina, Lara, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. How the heck are you doing today?
I am doing well and doing better now. Really happy to be here with you.
Where are you at? Where are you recording from?
Miami, Florida, and good weather today, which it's a hit or miss these days.
Really?
Yeah, like getting into summer in Miami, you get lots of rain showers.
Totally. I love it there. I was there a couple weeks ago. Wynwood, I think, is the coolest place on earth. It's got to be up there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I work in the Wynwood area, so any recommendations for your next visit, let me know.
Ooh, what's the best restaurant or best restaurant to check out in Wynwood area? Best attraction? Let the people know.
Well, I love Michael's Genuine, especially that's like my go-to lunch spot from the office. So just really good food, really good burger. I'm not even going to lie. And good cocktails too. Best attraction. I just hit up a new pottery spot this weekend in Wynwood, which was pretty cool. I hadn't been to one just yet. So that's kind of something I'm into, like tangible art and creation. Would recommend Pottery Miami.
That's what it's called? So what do you do in the Miami area? What are we going to talk about today?
So I lead marketing for Ampersand Studios, which is a creative co-working and content studio in the heart of the arts and entertainment district in Miami. But what do I do?
Wait, that sounds awesome. Say it again. It's what is it?
Creative co-working and content studio. So at our core, think like flexible workspace, co-working, members lounge, and private office. But our offering is tailored towards creative. So we have an in-house production studio as well as, equipment offering. So if you're looking to host a podcast like the one we're on today, or, shoot an editorial shoot, videography, etc., all by creators for creators under one roof.
We need to work out a deal, breaking and entering Ampersand Studios. We will talk after. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is networking, everybody. This is how you do it.
For sure.
So cool. Who are some of the like residents, I guess? What do you like? Is it like an incubator, would you call it? Or is just creators come in, they need a space to create? Like they come in for a little bit. Do they subscribe to it? How does it work? Who are
It's
there? Who
both.
do people
Yeah,
know?
it's really both. We have a core membership model where we have folks who are either coming in at a monthly basis or they have private offices with us. But we also work with production houses who purely just rent out our space. So anyone from the likes of Rolling Stone has shot editorial content there, as well as Viacom for some of their sessions, Loud and Live, to name a few.
Love it. And your job specifically, tell me about your job.
My job. Ooh, in one sentence?
No, it doesn't have to be a sentence. You got a whole podcast. You can talk the whole time about it.
So really what I do is I lead everything for our sales and marketing. I was actually brought on to be the first in-house marketing hire for Ampersand Studios. So this was at a point of inflection for the business when we were growing to serve a new market, being Nashville, which we opened this summer. And
That's smart. Yep.
yeah, and I was excited because I was tasked with defining this incredible brand that has just had a longstanding history of impact in Miami for the creative community, and really making sure, that there was a clear understanding of what this brand looked like as we expand it to new markets, and more importantly, how we could continue to serve that creative community. So the not as fun part of my job, but, very important for revenue, lead generation and digital marketing. But what I love to do in my job is really content marketing and community programming. So I oversee essentially every single marketing activity under the sun, but I have some really great partners that help me execute.
Dang.
Just a little.
What are some of the fun events or content you've created?
Well, just last month, we put together a panel for Women's History Month where it was really focused on women in business and empowering the next generation of women in business. So I curated and moderated a panel in our Nashville location that brought together co-founders, female co-founders within our membership base to really share their stories and their experiences, and also provide a bit of mentorship and connection for other small businesses and entrepreneurial women who are looking to get started in their journey.
Love it. So there's Miami, Nashville. Are there any other locations? ...
More to come.
What's the next one?
We're working on a couple in the pipeline. Austin is in the works among some others.
Smart. Nice. So so it's growing, right? Anytime a business or an agency is growing, they're going to bring on people. And they really, I think, is a really good success metric or something to look for if they're hiring a growth person. All right. That means they have the revenue for like a non-billable person to really amplify. So that's amazing. I want to know how you got here, your background, any ups and downs, lessons across the way. So where do we start? Let's start with, how did you break into this world of marketing? Was it always marketing? Was it PR? What were you at an ad agency? What was your first job? How'd you get it? Let me know.
Yeah, no, thank you. I studied PR. Fun fact.
Where at?
Florida International University here in Miami.
Wonderful.
Proud Panther, pulls up. And graduated with my degree. And my senior year, I landed an internship at Edelman. I know we're both Edel alum.
Yeah.
Edel prouds.
Proud.
With that, I started as a brand and digital intern. And I realized very, very quickly that the PR side of the work really just wasn't where I could provide the most value to my clients. And I was actually very much succeeding in bringing in my background of communication, but in a creative and digital way. So I actually got hired as a full-time assistant account executive and grew, 4 years almost at Edelman in a digital career where I was just focused on everything like social, digital, creative, strategy, content, and all the things in between.
Right. Because you were out, it was more the creative aspect of, you were actually in like an advertising sector within Edelman. Is that correct?
Exactly. So although like at the core, communication and this idea of like earn social versus like own social was still being balanced, I took what was successful in my studies and communication to really lean into like social account creative. Again, this is back in 2018. So a lot of community management, a lot of editorial calendars, brainstorming concepts. And honestly, I'm just a research nerd and I was curious. And I think that's what really landed me the gig at Edelman, because I remember my hiring manager was really impressed when I showed up to the interview, and I was just talking about, CoverGirl at the time had redone their slogan from easy breezy beautiful to you are what you make up. And I presented her an entire case study as to like why this went well on social, why this didn't do well on social, what I would have done differently if I was managing like the social campaign. And I think that side of like my curiosity and my nerdiness is ultimately what led me to the digital creative side of the work, and is what they saw in me, something that I could continue to grow on.
Did they ask you to come prepared with a case study, or did you just have it back pocket?
This is when you're going to think I'm a real nerd. Of course, they didn't ask me to come prepared with a case study. I just advice for any, future marketer, advertiser out there, just, be prepared, know what's happening in the industry. If you're going to an interview, I think it's always helpful to get that fresh perspective on what's out there.
Yeah. Tangible advice. That was my challenge for you.
Yeah.
And you're doing it. That is so critical. If you have the fortune and you land that interview, which everybody will if they're listening to the podcast, show up over prepared. Do your research on the company, the clients. If you have a case study or notes, something that you can share with people like that, that will go so far. And I've, as somebody that's been on the other side, interviewed for interns at Havas Chicago, you get the same kind of you get very similar interviews. People are excited, then it kind of gets easy to mold, right? So if you can stand out, that's so critical. And you did that with your case study with CoverGirl. And did you like the rebrand, the new slogan? What are your thoughts?
Hot take, I didn't like the rebrand. Just because of the iconic, part of their original tagline. I think the rebrand represented like, the future of makeup and fashion. But I completely agree with you. I think that was like my differentiating factor, and just showing up in my role, even early days as an intern, getting pulled into new business pitches. I was already like 2 steps ahead, ready with research and ready with like insights that, at that point, I don't know how to build a strategy, but I can tell you some stats I found online that are relevant to the business pitch. So just that kind of eager attitude to learn and to be willing to put in the work.
Totally. Love it. I got in the immersion associate program Edelman had pre-pandemic. How I got that was because I listened to Richard Edelman on the Ad Age podcast like 10 times. And I just basically regurgitated everything he said to the recruiter. She's like, how do you know our 10-year plan? I was like, I just did research. But I literally went to sleep listening to Richard Edelman. So if you're listening to this, Richard, you got to come on the pod.
And hey, maybe someone's listening to your pod and they're like, oh, I know just what to say for my next interview too.
Exactly. That's the blueprint. Like that helps. Like, especially if you know you're interviewing at Ampersand, you listen to this and now you know a lot more than everybody else.
100% agreed.
So Edelman, you were there for 4 years. I congratulate you. They are good at PR for sure. That's how I got my boot camp, learned the basics there, media lists, like on the PR side of things, but you were more so creative side of things. What was the next big thing after that for you?
Yeah, I think after, almost 4 years at Edelman, I realized that I had a lot of experience in account management, project management, digital strategy, content marketing, insights, analytics. Depending on the client, I was doing something different. And there are so many good things that come from that. We spoke about this. I think a year in agency life, they're almost like dog years. You learn so much and
yes,
so quickly.
Yes.
I quickly realized that while I had given so much to Edelman and I had received so much in my experience, I was ready for my next step to be challenged in a new way. And that's when I started venturing into applying into a role at Twitter. That came from, my social background. I had started my career as a community manager at Edelman. I managed entertainment accounts where we were primarily leveraging Twitter to build, fuel fandom, and connect with our community. And I was fascinated.
Nice. That was good.
Yeah, when I
Dual
mean,
fandom and connecting with you're
it's
you're
just
good at
like,
this.
but that was like Twitter back in the day, you can
Yeah.
like, I remember my parents are physicians and I remember telling my mom, like, yeah, you're saving someone's life. But like I'm like a lifeline to this person on the other side of the screen right now, playing that role of community manager. And that for me was like purpose.
Did she buy that?
No, of course not.
Yeah, but it was good. It's good though.
It's a
Sounds
good
good to me.
pitch. Hey, that's the communication background.
I like this. This is good.
And in that, I
Yeah.
kind of, to answer your question on the transition, I realized there was something with that part of Twitter that I was really interested in. So I started looking for roles there. Fun fact, I got rejected from the first role that I actually applied to. So I started looking for connections and I realized there was a fellow Edelman alum who had a similar, pipeline at Edelman that I had. And I didn't even reach out to her for the connection on, a job I was applying to. I just reached out to her like, hey, out of curiosity, like fellow Edel alum, I see that we did similar things with similar clients and you're now at Twitter. I'd love to just connect with you, learn about your role, learn about like the org, what you like, what you don't like, and everything in between. And months later, a new position opened at Twitter. Again, never even like connected with her until I was fully hired, but I applied, went through the recruitment process, was accepted. And I ended up doubling down on a niche and developing content strategies and educational content for Fortune 100 executives who essentially looked at me as their partner engagement manager to learn how to tweet and what to tweet and relevance to their brand.
It all worked out. I like that.
Yeah.
What I learned there is, especially a large agency like Edelman, there's going to be alumni. Like it's kind of like college. Like you figure out who worked at Edelman and you saw that, you found that connection. That's actually a really good like reason or proof point for people to look large agency first. There's the million takes out there, but that's a really good benefit if you start with a large agency and then you can pivot from there because of that alumni base of that agency. So that's a really cool piece of
And
advice.
the differentiator too is making sure that you're not going straight with the ask. I'm sure the conversation would have been very differently if I said, hey, I saw that there's this opening and I want a referral.
Right. And they see through it. We see through it. Like we know, like
Exactly. So
but it's just the effort, right? Like the etiquette, and you did it right and respectfully. You did your homework. You said that we worked on similar stuff. Like that's the way to do it for sure.
it goes back to what you were saying when you interview someone. Like you can tell the difference when someone does their research and you kind of applaud the time that was put in. Because at the end of the day, it's like you want your time to be respected.
Right.
And we all want, that next gen to be able to be empowered too. So we want to give them time, but we don't want someone to just say, hey, we want a referral. Like, hey, let's connect first and get to know each other as people.
I got to give a lot of love. I give some love and kudos and flowers to Edelman because they teach, like, you go through that, like the customization when you're pitching and the communications, like your ability, just you talking right now, you can tell that you're good at this stuff. And I think maybe Edelman has helped a little bit with that too. So gotta give some love to the Edel folks out there. So yeah, you were at Twitter, you were there. Life is good. You're doing some interesting stuff with Fortune 100 leaders. Life is good. And what happened?
And then, Gino, life is not so good.
Oh, it's not always great.
It's not always great on the tech side.
Were you in San Francisco?
No, I was fully remote, but because of my role, I traveled a lot to New York and SF.
Yep.
My team, man, one of the best teams I have ever worked with. Like, I cannot applaud Leslie Berlin and Nola Weinstein and just like the marketing org, the brand experience and engagement org enough, for my manager, Caroline as well. But it was short-lived because of the layoffs that happened post-acquisition. And that left me kind of stumped. Like, what now? I don't know. After being a do-it-aller at an agency and then really focusing on honing in my niche and content strategy and partner engagement management, what does my next step look like? I was kind of in this unknown.
What was the timeline on this? One more time for me.
This was end of 2022 was the main layoffs that happened, where about 4,000 tweeps got laid off after the acquisition. And then a lot of tech layoffs followed between that Q4 of 2022 to the beginning of 2023.
Right. Right. So immediate reactions, how did you handle it? What was going on in your mind? Paint us that picture.
Immediate reactions. Shock. I think I knew it was coming, but to like actually be locked out of my computer was like a completely different feeling. Embarrassment. I had never been laid off before, and I felt like that's something that naively you think, you hear about from other people, but you never expect can happen to yourself. And a little lonely. I was like a remote employee based here in Miami. I knew some other Miami tweeps, but I didn't really have, my main coworkers, sort of speak, that were based out of the SF office or the New York office as easily accessible to me.
Hmm. I can't imagine. I mean, like, who did you reach out to? Did you take some time for yourself? Like, how did you heal? Were you immediately going to the computer networking? Like, what are the next steps in that? I think painting this picture and giving and like the lessons you learn from this is super helpful, because these are realities, especially when we're breaking into advertising. Agency world is changing constantly. If you lose a big client, this happens. This is a reality. We don't talk about this a lot on this podcast. So forgive me. It's not like something that we go over a lot. So walk me through this. You take the ownership of this podcast. You tell me what I need to know, and our listeners are going to take notes as well.
Really, it's like a breakup that you don't get closure from. I don't know why that's the first thing I can think of, but I felt
I got
like
a couple of those.
I felt like I just was going through all these emotions and didn't really know who to turn to or what the right plan of action was. And I consider myself to be sort of a high achieving individual. So I thrive off of doing well in work. And for such a long time, my personal identity was just revolving around being quote unquote successful in the workplace. So I was at a loss professionally, but I felt like I was at a loss personally. Really.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
You talk about that, the identity being wrapped in your career. This is something I struggle with so much with the podcast and work. And my people know me as the ad guy. How did you deal with that?
You got to go back to your roots, whether that's family, whether that's friends, whether that's mentors, colleagues, or folks that perhaps like you went to university with, or you like some point in your career you cross paths with. I really took the time to first and foremost feel, because, in order to properly like be in tune with your emotional intelligence, you need to be self-aware and realize like, okay, I need to really process the fact that this happened and the fact that this doesn't mean, it's the end of the world. And then secondly, find that moment of like, well, I never had the time and or the energy to like maybe connect with some of these folks in a while. So I have no excuse now. Like I'm grabbing coffee with like old coworkers, mentors, managers, previous friends that I had studied at university with, and just reminiscing on, who we used to be, who we are now, what's next, and realizing that even folks who had a secure role were still in doubt of a few things that I was too. So just because I was jobless in this moment didn't mean that anyone else who wasn't jobless had something unnecessarily more figured out than I did.
Totally. I think that's great. And then after that, I mean, how long does that take? And then walk us through the next steps.
It was about like let's say 3-month timeline, because 3 to 4, because it happened around the holidays. I really just, again, took time to be connected with, those around me. I also took time to run because I signed up for a half marathon because I suddenly had all this time. So the running addiction basically started around there. My Creative Ladder cohort members are probably, if they're listening to this, cracking up because I am the crazy runner of the group. But hey, somebody has to get their miles in.
What running shoes do you recommend?
Well, it just depends what you're looking for. Right now I'm really into my New Balances. I have the New Balance 1080s for like my everyday trainer, and I just got the Hoka Match 5.
Maybe some people will start running because of that.
Well, let me know, you guys, if you're in Miami. Let's meet up for Run Club.
Boom. So 3 months, you said I love that you took some time, family, friends, reconnecting, going back to your roots. The running doesn't sound that bad. I mean, to me, it does right now, but it sounds like did you do the half marathon?
I did. I did the half marathon, and I've done 3 more since then. So,
Damn. Nice.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that 3 months, what was that? What was that like?
We started off the new year freelancing, really, but then also was still applying to tech roles, not fully realizing that there was just a full tech wave of layoffs that were happening. And I had roles that quite literally were closing in the middle of my interview process, or unfortunately, the hiring managers were being like laid off throughout my process as well. And that made me realize, do I want to stay in tech because I just am so passionate about this industry? Or what am I really passionate about? And how can I get to that step where I'm like redefining myself to reach that passion, whatever it is? And ultimately, that second part is what I decided to do, and really focusing on updating my resume, getting out there and connecting with some folks to do what I wanted to do, which I realized was community building. I told you I was a community manager on social media when I first started.
Yep.
But
Full
with
circle.
my current role, I found that when I was applying to it, there was this aspect of creative community that for the first time in my marketing career, I was going to have like this tangible access to community and this in-person interaction that many times as marketers, we don't really interact with that end consumer, or buyer.
Is that what led you to Ampersand?
That's what led me to Ampersand. Yes.
Amazing. And application, how did that go?
Application.
Did you have to network your way? Was there a job posting, or did you just get on the back end?
In my networking, as I mentioned to you, of like family, friends, and previous university colleagues, my previous university friend actually was leading operation for Ampersand. And we were just catching up casually over coffee. And she was mentioning, some of the pain points, challenges that they were having with, looking to hire someone to, for the first time, oversee in-house marketing for expansion. And it was more of like that soft brainstorm that we would always do. Like, hey, here's what's going on in my job. What's going on in yours? Let's talk about it. And somehow it was a light bulb moment that it was almost like, wait, you're hiring for this role. I've never specifically managed a role in this capacity before. However, here are all the accounts I've managed successfully or not successfully. I'm learned the wrong way because we're going to be transparent here. And let me tell you how all of these can transfer into points of success or Ampersand. And from there, she connected me with the founder. I was able to go through that interview process, be transparent in what I knew and the value I can add in the areas that could be growth opportunities for me in the role. And we kicked the ball running. I joined in end of February 2023. And we, as I told you, opened our new Nashville location in August. So it was a sprint.
I'm coming down there. I'm going.
Let us know, for real.
We can do some live. That could be a community event. Let's get the aspiring advertisers from the Miami community, Nashville community. I'll moderate. We'll have a workshop. We'll get people together, community build. It'll be mutually beneficial. Bada bing, bada boom.
Well, I know who approves all our programming events, so we might have an in for you there.
Hey, let's go.
I thought you were going to say we could honky tonk. We could do that too.
Honky tonk.
Come on, you've never honky tonked in Nashville?
Oh, I have. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I know exactly. Amazing. I think we came full circle here. We got some good lessons. Anything that we did not mention that you're like, we were supposed to talk about XYZ. We didn't do that. Now is your chance to bring it up.
Yeah, I just, to anyone who's listening out there who might, either be trying to break in or, re-break in whatever that's looking like for you, just don't take your experiences for granted. Everything that you've learned, whether you are learning it in a school setting and trying to, get your first internship, or whether you already have plenty of experience under your belt and now need to redefine your personal brand for that next thing in your journey. Just, find folks in your network that you can bounce ideas off of that can really help you see how you could tie your previous experiences and whatever they are into, that next role. Because really, I think advertising, marketing, it's always on. And even those of us that have been here for a while now, we're still always learning and always evolving. So it's never too soon to break in.
Love that. Bill, yeah, there's a narrative in every job, everywhere you've been. There's a narrative, and it should be tailored to every job application. Think about, connect those dots, whether you're a waiter, waitress, you started a podcast in the summertime, or you went to Italy to take photos, whatever you do, there's got to be a way to connect the dots. So
Yeah.
I love that advice. How can people reach out to you if they have any other questions, want to talk more?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Valentina Lara.
Wonderful. Well, Valentina, A+, amazing job. Thank you for coming on. You did a great job.
Well, Gino, thank you.
We'll be honky tonkin'.
Oh, yeah. See you in Nashville.
All right. Bye.